welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that really underpins pretty much every significant achievement.
Yeah.
Self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Our source material for this dive comes from excerpts of a discussion on the Master Your Mindset podcast. It features a mindset coach and author named Jordan.
Right.
And our mission. It's really to get to the heart of why this conversation positions self-discipline as, well, the absolute foundational key to long-term success.
Yeah, it's a subject that kind of hits home for everyone, doesn't it? We all have those big dreams, those audacious goals.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe launching that business, getting truly fit, or, mastering a new skill.
Right.
But that gap between having the goal and actually making it reality, well, that's where so many people get stuck.
Yeah.
And the perspective in these sources is that self-discipline, that's the essential bridge across that gap.
Absolutely. The core idea here is, well, it's simple, but pretty profound. Wishing isn't enough. You need consistent action. And the sources argue that self-discipline isn't just a factor. It's like the defining factor. Let's unpack exactly what that means.
Okay, so starting with the basics, the definition presented in the source material. Self-discipline is described as the ability to consistently do what needs to be done.
Even when you don't feel like it.
Exactly. Even when you absolutely do not feel like doing it.
That gets right to the core, doesn't it? Making decisions based on future goals, choosing them over, immediate comfort or impulse.
That's the essence of delaying gratification. The source actually calls it out as a real superpower.
A superpower, I like that.
Yeah, and it's that quiet, consistent action, day after day, especially when it's inconvenient or, frankly, uncomfortable.
Right.
And it directly relates to that powerful quote often attributed to Jim Rohn, which gets referenced here. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment.
So it's not about waiting for motivation to strike.
No, not at all. It's about acting despite the lack of motivation.
So you're saying the impressive results we often see, like the six-pack abs, the finished book, the thriving business, they aren't just random moments of inspiration.
No, they're the sum total. The result of countless small disciplined choices happening behind the scenes.
The silent force.
Precisely. That's what the source calls it. It's choosing the gym over the couch when you're tired,
Yeah.
Or having the hard conversation instead of avoiding conflict, or doing that focused work session instead of just scrolling social media. That ability to consistently choose the long-term payoff over the short-term pleasure, well, the source suggests it's truly transformative across fitness, finances, relationships, career, all of it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But if it's this crucial superpower, why does it feel so difficult for so many of us? Like, is it something you're born with, or can you actually build it?
Well, the good news from the sources is it's absolutely presented as a trainable skill.
Okay, good.
It's not fixed, but there are biological and psychological factors at play that make it challenging. Our prefrontal cortex.
Right, the decision-making part of the brain.
Exactly. That part is key for planning, impulse control, overriding those urges. It's heavily involved in discipline.
And like any muscle, I guess it can get tired.
That's exactly it. The source touches on this idea of decision fatigue.
Ah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Every decision you make all day, from tiny things like what to wear to bigger things like which task to tackle next, it draws from a limited pool of willpower.
So by the end of the day.
By the end of the day, that reservoir can be seriously depleted. And that makes it much, much harder to resist temptations. The late night binge watching, the snacks, the endless scrolling.
Okay, so this is where the practical insight comes in. The solution isn't just like grit your teeth and try harder when you're already running on empty.
Right. That often backfires. The suggested approach is actually to reduce the number of decisions you have to make.
Oh.
By conserving that willpower. And the most effective way to do that, create routines, build habits.
Okay. So automate the good stuff.
Exactly. When something becomes a habit, it requires far less conscious effort, less willpower. It just happens.
You see this with those super disciplined folks, right?
Yeah.
Like Jocko Willink or David Goggins. They always talk about their intense routines.
Precisely. It's not necessarily about being rigid for rigidity's sake. It's about automating those key positive behaviors so you don't have to spend mental energy deciding to do them every single day.
It reduces the friction.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to just do the thing.
Exactly. Less friction.
So, okay, if you're listening and thinking, right, but I feel like I have zero discipline, where do you even begin? The sources offer a sort of golden rule here.
And it's surprisingly simple. Start small.
Like really small.
Almost absurdly small. Pick one tiny thing you can commit to doing consistently. The examples given are things like making your bed first thing, or going for just a 10-minute walk, or maybe writing just one paragraph if you're working on something bigger.
So the task itself isn't really the point.
Not initially, no. The point is the consistency. The goal of these small wins is to prove to yourself that you can be consistent. It's about building self-trust.
Okay.
The source uses this fantastic analogy. You're essentially building a reputation with yourself.
I like that. A reputation with yourself.
Yeah. Every time you keep a small promise, I'll make my bed, and you do it, you deposit a little bit of trust, a bit of self-respect into your internal bank account, so to speak.
And when you break them.
Every time you break one, even a small one, you chip away at that self-confidence.
But let's be real. Everyone messes up sometimes. Life happens. You miss a day of your new habit. What's the approach then when you fall off track?
This is crucial. The sources really emphasize this. The key is don't let one slip become a total downward spiral.
Okay. Don't catastrophize.
Exactly. Acknowledge it, sure, but don't dwell on it or use it as an excuse to just abandon everything. Discipline, in this view, it's forgiving in a way.
Yeah.
One missed workout doesn't ruin your fitness journey, but it's also honest. Letting that one missed workout turn into a week or a month, well, that will have consequences. The focus has to be on getting back on track as quickly as possible. Just the next meal, the next workout, the next day.
That makes so much sense. Don't let a stumble become a complete collapse. Okay, now, the source highlights a really important distinction, one that I think trips a lot of people up. It's the difference between discipline and motivation.
Oh, yeah. This is huge.
We've all felt that rush, right? After watching some inspiring video or something.
Totally, but then it disappears.
Exactly. Why?
Well, because, as the discussion explains, motivation is mainly emotional. It's inherently temporary.
Like that sugar high you mentioned.
Precisely. It's exciting for a moment, but then it crashes. Discipline, on the other hand, that's presented as rational. It's built on commitment, not feelings.
And that leads to very different outcomes, I imagine.
Absolutely. Relying only on motivation. That leads to inconsistent, kind of sporadic progress. You only work when you feel like it.
Which isn't always often.
Right. But discipline. Discipline leads to inevitable progress because you do the work regardless of how you feel. The powerful idea here is you don't need to wait for inspiration. You don't need to feel good to do the work. You just need to show up.
Wow. That's a massive mindset shift, isn't it? Choosing to be ready and act rather than sort of waiting around until you feel ready or inspired.
It really is. And the sources point out this is often the key thing separating amateurs from champions in basically any field.
The champions show up anyway.
They show up and do the work, especially on the days they least feel like it. That's the difference maker.
Okay, so if we understand what discipline is, how to start small, how does this actually play out across different areas of our lives? Can you give some examples from the source?
Sure. The source material gives examples across various domains. So for health, it's pretty clear, right? It's making the disciplined choice water over soda.
Yeah.
Going to the gym even when you're tired. Prioritizing sleep instead of, scrolling on your phone late into the night.
And in finances.
Similar idea. It's the discipline to save money regularly instead of giving in to those impulse buys. It's about prioritizing that long-term financial security over the immediate gratification.
Makes sense. What about in your career?
There, it could be choosing to focus on deep work, tackling the most important, maybe difficult tasks instead of constantly getting pulled into email or other distractions.
Saying no sometimes.
Exactly. Saying no to things that don't align with your core priorities.
Yeah.
That takes discipline.
And even in relationships, how does it apply there?
Yeah, it does. It's the discipline sometimes to have those tough, necessary conversations.
Oh, yeah.
To choose honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, or to genuinely listen to someone without just formulating your own response or reacting defensively. That takes real discipline.
And crucially for mental health as well.
Absolutely. That could be the discipline to stick to a meditation or journaling practice, even for just a few minutes. Setting boundaries. Actively saying no to toxic influences, whether that's people or maybe even certain types of content you consume.
What's fascinating here, listening to all this, is it sounds like these seemingly small daily discipline choices, they kind of compound over time.
That's exactly the idea presented. It's like compound interest, but for your personal growth. Each disciplined action reinforces the habit, it shapes your identity slightly, and it makes the next disciplined choice just a little bit easier.
Okay, speaking of identity, the sources highlight 3 key mindset shifts that are supposed to really foster discipline. What's the first one?
The first one is adopting a growth mindset,
Meaning?
meaning believing that discipline isn't some fixed innate talent you either have or you don't,
Right.
but seeing it rather as a skill, something that can be developed and strengthened through practice, just like training a muscle.
Okay, trainable. That's hopeful. What's the second shift?
Second, embracing discomfort.
Ooh, that sounds uncomfortable.
Well, yes, but it's a powerful reframing. Instead of automatically running away from discomfort or difficulty, the idea is to see it as a signal that you're stretching, learning, growing.
So lean into it.
Kind of use that discomfort as fuel, maybe, rather than just a reason to stop or back away.
Interesting. Okay, and the third one. You mentioned identity earlier.
Yeah, the third one is focusing on identity, and this might be the most profound shift discussed.
So.
It's about moving away from just the external goal, like I want to be disciplined, to cultivating an internal identity. I am a disciplined person.
Subtle but significant.
Very. Because the sources explain that your actions tend to follow your self-identity. If you truly start to believe you are a disciplined person, you'll more naturally make choices that align with that belief.
So how do you cultivate that belief?
Well, things like affirmations, maybe journaling specifically about your disciplined actions, even the small ones, or visualizing yourself acting as that disciplined person. Those can be really powerful tools to help solidify that internal shift.
Okay. So mindset matters a lot. What about common traps people fall into? Or maybe myths about self-discipline that the source debunks?
Yeah, there are a few. One myth addressed is that discipline has to be super rigid or harsh or kind of like punishing yourself all the time.
Act like it's joyless.
Exactly. But the sources argue it's actually about alignment. Aligning your daily actions with your deeper values and your long-term goals. It's not meant as punishment. It's purposeful living.
That's a much better frame. What else?
Comparison is a big one, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Social media makes that easy.
Huge trap. Comparing your discipline journey, especially your messy middle, to someone else's highlight reel. You know, seeing their apparent ease or results without seeing their struggles, it's just counterproductive. Your path is unique. Focus on your small, consistent steps.
Good reminder. Anything else?
Yeah, a really critical trap is burnout.
Pushing too hard for too long.
Exactly. Pushing relentlessly without proper rest or recovery, that's not discipline. That's just a recipe for breakdown. True discipline, according to this perspective, actually includes knowing when and how to rest and recharge effectively. It's part of the system.
So it circles back to that idea you mentioned earlier. Discipline isn't about being perfect all the time.
No, definitely not. It's about being consistent. Progress over perfection. It's really about doing the right thing, the aligned thing, significantly more often than not.
Okay, so summing it all up, what's the big long-term payoff for cultivating this skill?
The sources mention this, the seemingly counterintuitive idea. Discipline actually creates freedom. How does that work?
Yeah, it sounds like a paradox, right?
Yeah,
Discipline equals freedom.
a little bit.
But think about it. When you gain control over your time, your money, your energy, by making disciplined choices about how you use them, you actually end up with more time, more money, more energy in the long run.
Because you're not wasting them on impulse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're no longer just a slave to impulse or circumstance or distraction.
Right.
You shift from being reactive, constantly putting out fires, getting pulled in a million directions, to
Yeah.
being proactive.
You become the architect of your own life.
Yeah.
Steering it intentionally. That's the core idea, yeah. And the source really emphasizes the exponential nature of this payoff.
Compound interest again.
Right. The longer you consistently apply discipline in any area, your health, your business, your learning, your relationships, the more everything compounds, the growth accelerates.
So, based on the picture painted in this discussion,
Mm-hmm.
if someone listening truly committed to this, to building and practicing discipline over, say, the next 5 years, what could that look like for them? What's the potential transformation?
Wow. Okay. Well, based on the source's perspective, they would likely find a deep sense of clarity, purpose. They'd probably feel this quiet but really powerful confidence.
Because they've proved it to themselves.
Exactly. Because they know they're capable. They've seen the evidence through their own consistent action. They'd feel much more firmly in the driver's seat of their life. Looking back, they'd see progress built deliberately, intentionally, rather than just sort of hoping things would change somehow.
That's a really compelling vision. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the single most important takeaway from Jordan's perspective in these sources? The one thing you hope listeners really carry with them?
I think it's the empowering message that you are not stuck. You really are, in a very practical way, just one disciplined decision away from starting to change the trajectory of your life.
One decision.
One decision. Don't wait for motivation to magically appear. Start today. Start incredibly small, almost laughably small if you have to, and just trust that process.
Yeah.
Trust the process of building momentum, building that self-trust day by day.
That simple call to action, start today, start small, feels incredibly actionable, not overwhelming.
Exactly.
And just for context, for anyone who wants to explore Jordan's work further, the source mentions his Instagram is at Jordan Mindset Coach. His book, Master Your Discipline, is available on Amazon, and he also offers one-on-one coaching.
Yeah, those are great resources mentioned if this resonates and you want to go deeper into his specific approach.
Definitely. So here's something to consider as you go about your day. If that ability to delay gratification really is a superpower, and discipline is the muscle that enables it, how might consciously practicing just one small act of delayed gratification today, maybe waiting 15 minutes before checking that notification, or choosing the healthier snack even when you crave the other one, how might that one small act begin to unlock that incredible power for you? Think about it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.